जनपद एंड महाजनपद ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या हैं? आफ्टर रीडिंग दिस यूनिट you will be able to distinguish between the society of the 6th century BC and that of earlier period, learn about the emergence of new groups in the society during the 6th century BC, and get a detailed information about the various janpads and mahajanpads which came into prominence. Introduction. You must have observed this fact that the people around you speak the same language. Not only this, the entire region seems to celebrate the same festivals. The people of the entire region tend to have similarities in their marriage customs too. The food they cook will also be similar. How did areas having cultural homogeneity come into existence? The beginning of this process goes back to the emergence of janpads. The emergence of janpads signified the birth of geography in Indian society. Remember, when we discussed the Vedic society, we did not talk about specific geographical regions. That was because people were not attached to any particular area. With the settlements of agriculturists coming up, the settlers formed enduring ties with their surrounding landscape. They observed the hills and rivers, birds and animals and fruits that were found in that area. Not only this was the time when they learned to call a particular geographical space as their own. This geographical space was separated from those of the other communities, that is janpads, who might be friendly or hostile to them. These janpads, characterized by cohesion inside and separation from the outside world, proved to be seminal development in ancient India. These units or janpads became the centers for the development of uniform language, custom and beliefs. The Vedic age and 6th century BC. When we talk about janpads, we have to refer to a number of things associated with the emergence of the janpads. Since the janpads are known from about the 6th century BC, we can say that in the regions in which the janpads of this period are found, many changes took a concrete shape. Villages, towns, and cities were the units where the people lived in a janpad. You may have noticed that when we discussed various aspects of early Vedic and later Vedic society, we did not refer to people living in such varieties of settlements as village, towns, and cities, although they did live in modest settlements. Further, this was the time when kings and monarchs emerged on the stage of history. This was also the age of intense philosophical speculation. Buddhism, Jainism, and many other heterodox sects emerged during this period. Monks, monarchs, and merchants crowd the canvas of the history. Thus, in various aspects, the period that we shall be studying now, approximately 6th BC to 4th century BC, will reveal to us the changes that continue to take place in Indian society after what we discussed in block number 3. Our sources of information. We find information about the janpads and mahajanpads from some Vedic and Buddhist texts. The Brahmins refer to a category of Vedic texts which deal with the methods of performing Vedic rituals. Similarly, the Upanishads, dealing with philosophical problems, are also considered a part of the Vedic literature. These texts were composed from 800 BC onwards. They refer to many janpads and mahajanpads and provide us insights into the settlement of agricultural communities. Another category of sources providing us information about this period are the texts composed by the Buddhists. The Vinayak Pitaka, dealing with the rules of the order, the Sutta Pitaka, a collection of Buddha sermons, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, discussing problems of metaphysics, tell us about the preachers, princes, rich, poor, and town and villages of that period. The Jatakas, dealing with the stories of the previous birth of the Buddha, are part of the Sutta Pitaka. They give us graphic inscription of the contemporary society. These texts have clear references to various regions and geographical divisions. The archaeologists also contribute to our understanding of this period. They have dug up various places like Ahichatra, Hastinapur, Kausambi, and Ujjaini, Sravasti, Vaishali, and many more, which are mentioned in the texts of this period. They have discovered the remains of the houses, buildings, towns, and objects used by the people. For example, the archaeological finds from this period indicate the use of a deluxe pottery called the northern black polished ware, to which reference has already been made in block number 3. In the settlements of the previous period, the people either did not know the use of iron or used it sparingly. In the 6th century BC, people were using iron tools on a large scale. Prosperous agricultural settlements and towns have also been reported in the excavations. Thus, the archaeological and literary sources put together provide us with a more complete picture of the Indian society between the 6th and the 4th century BC. Units of settlement 1. The Janpad. The contemporary texts indicate that changes in society and ceremony and economy were taking place in a well-confined geographical space. The literature relating to the period that we are discussing refers to various kinds of units of settlement. They are referred to as Mahajanpad, Janpad, Nagar, Nigam, Gram, etc. Let us first see what the Janpads were. Janpad. Janpad literally meaning the place where the people place their feet is often referred to in the texts of this period. You remember the meaning of Jana. In the Vedic society, it referred to members of a clan. In the early Vedic society, the members of Jan were pastoral groups roaming in search of pastures. However, in the later Vedic phase, the members of Jana took up agriculture and began to settle down. These agricultural settlements were called Janpads. In the initial phases, these settlements were named after the dominant Kshatriya lineages settled in that area. For example, the areas around Delhi and Upper UP were known as the Kuru and Panchal Janpads after the names of the dominant Kshatriya lineages. Once they settled down in one place, there was an expansion of agriculture, especially with the use of iron axes and plugs shares. These iron tools could clear the forest and dig deeper than the stone or copper tools available to the agriculturists of the preceding centuries. The middle Gangetic Valley, that is, the area east of Allahabad, was suited to wet rice cultivation. Rice yields are higher than wheat yields per acre. All this would lead to gradual agricultural expansion as also growth of population. The chiefs of the lineages at war with each other had more to loot and defend. This was because, besides cattle, now agriculture and other productivities are also available in local entities. Therefore, there is agriculture expansion, war and conquest. The Vedic tribes had come in closer contact with each other and with the non-Aryan population. This, in fact, has led to the formation of large territorial entities. For example, the Panchalas represented the coming together of 5 smaller tribes. Some of the Janpadas were to develop into Mahajanpadas by the 6th century BC. This happened as a result of a series of changes in the internal socio-political structure of the Janpadas. One such important change was the expansion of agricultural communities. This is indicated by the fact that the contemporary texts list agricultural land as a very important economic asset. These texts discussed the varieties of rice in as much detail as did the Vedic texts discuss the varieties of cows. Let us see what the changes were. Emergence of new groups. One very important change was the emergence of new categories and groups of people in the society. Let us look at this aspect in some details. Gahapati. A Gahapati was the master of an individual household which owned land. A Brahman Gahapati is said to have owned so much of land that he needed 500 plugs to get it cultivated. In the later Vedic society, it was the Vis which performed agricultural activities. Land was jointly owned by the lineage. With the emergence of agricultural society, land became an important form of wealth. As such, the ruling clans of the Kshatriyas and Brahmans brought it under their control. Out of these groups emerged the Gahapati, who signified the disintegration of joint ownership and the emergence of big individual landowners. The Gahapatis got their land cultivated by slaves, that is dasas, hired laborers, karmakaras and shudras. People captured during war were made slaves. The impoverished members of the tribe also joined the ranks of the laborers. The use of dependent labor was indicative of the emergence of a deprived class whose labor was being used to produce surplus food. The product of the land would not go to the Sudra or the Dasa but to the master, that is the Gahapati. Merchants. It was possibly from the ranks of the Gahapatis that an important class of the traders emerged. Through the sale of their produce, they built up a certain amount of capital which was used for trading. The word frequently used for traders in the Buddhist sources is sethi, meaning a person having the best. It shows that the people who dealt with money matters had acquired considerable prestige and power. The Brahminical sources generally looked down on trading, and the Vaishyas, who were generally associated with trading. However, by the 6th century BC, trade and merchandise became an independent sphere of economic activity. The traders lived in cities, and their emergence is related to the emergence of towns and cities in the period. These merchants traded over very large areas. By trading among different principalities, they created a possibility for kings to try and control larger areas wasted by merchants. Thus, by the 6th century BC, a class of free peasants and merchants had emerged. They had freed themselves from clan obligations of sharing surplus food or wealth with the other members of the lineage, as was the case earlier. Private property in farm animals, in land and its produce had emerged as the dominant economic reality of the time. Ruler and the ruled. Combined with developments in the socio-economic field were changes in the nature of the polity of the Mahajanpadas. In the preceding period, the word Raja referred to the chief of a lineage. For example, Ram, whose legends are related to this period, is often referred to as the Raghukul Raja, meaning one who rules over the Raghu clan. Similarly, Yudhishthir is called the Kuru Raja. They ruled over their lineage, and the notion of a ruler ruling over territory had not emerged. The taxes collected from the kinsmen were largely voluntary tributes. The king was considered a generous father figure, ensuring the prosperity of the lineage. He did not have an independent taxation system or army. The references to kings in the 6th century, kings in the 6th century BC, on the other hand, indicate his rule over a territory with a regular taxation system and army. There are references to Krashka, that is peasant, who paid taxes to the king. Now, the peasant and the army were not linked in any kinship tie with the Raja. The distinction was now between the Raja and the Praja. The Praja included people from the non-lineage groups also. A standing army implied control over local peasantry through force and an attitude of permanent confrontation with the people and kings of the neighboring territories. The cattle raids of the preceding period were replaced by organized campaigns in which territory was annexed and agriculturists and traders were forced to pay taxes. Officials entrusted with the work of tax collection are repeatedly mentioned. An official called Bhagdugha collected bhag, that is, a share of the agricultural produce. Survey of the agricultural land was done by an official called Raju Gahaka. The Jatakas mention royal officials measuring out grain to send it to the king's granary. The Mahajanpadas did not bear the name of the dominant Kshatriya lineage in most of the cases. For example, Kosala, Magಧ, Avanti and Vatsa were not named after any Kshatriya lineage. Thus we see that a new kind of political system had emerged by the 6th century BC. The chief of the tribe, who used to raid enemy territories and distribute the loot among his followers, was transformed into a king having an army unfettered by tribal loyalties. The army was paid out of the revenues collected from the cultivators. The Vedic chief's desire for glory and sacrifices led to his breaking away from the lineage. The tribe would not be interested in fighting wars in distant areas and would oppose any regular tax for the maintenance of the army. This the king needed for his glory and power. The king's authority was not based on the distribution of wealth among the fellow tribesmen. It was based on breaking coherent lineage groups and recognizing individuals and groups who would produce wealth. Some of this wealth was taken away from its producers in the form of taxes. In a lineage society, where everyone was regarded as everyone else's relative, such arbitrary taking away of wealth by the chief would not be allowed. The new king levied taxes and protected the peasants and merchants from internal and external aggression. Next is units of settlement 2, the Mahajanpad. A new type of society marked by the presence of Gahapati, the merchant, and the relationship between the ruler and the ruled was reflected in new kinds of politico-geographical units called the Mahajanpad. The word Mahajanpad means large janpads like those of Magಧ, Kosal, etc., ruled by powerful kings or oligarchies. In fact, many of the Mahajanpads of the 6th century BC came up by incorporating Janpads which were previously autonomous. For example, Kosal Mahajanpad included the Janpads of the Sakyas and of the Kashi. Magda came to include the Janpads of Ang, Vajji, etc., even before it grew into an empire. The new society, which is reflected in the contemporary Buddhist texts, can be seen in the story of the Jivaka. Historians read these stories to understand the hopes, ambitions, and struggles of men of those days and their contemporary social milieu. The story of Jivak. The story of Jivak, the famous physician, comes to us from the times of the Buddha. In the city of Rajgriha, Rajgur, near Patna, there was a prince named Abhaya. He saw an abandoned baby on the street. He brought him home and ordered the maid servants to take care of the child. The boy was called Jivak. When Jivak grew up, he wondered what he should do for a living. He decided that he would become a physician, that is Vaidya. In those days, Takshila was a famous center of learning. Jivak decided to go there to learn medicine. Jivak stayed in Takshila for 7 years. He studied hard under the guidance of a famous medicine man. At the end of his apprenticeship, his teacher took a test. He asked Jivak to look around the surroundings at Takshila and bring some plants which could not be used for medicinal purposes. Jivak went out and looked about as carefully as he could for some plants which were useless for medicine. When he returned, the teacher asked him, "How many plants did you find?" Jivak said, "Sir, I could not find a single plant which did not have any medicinal value." The teacher was very pleased and said that his education was complete. Jivak set out for Rajgriha. He ran out of money after he had covered half the distance only. He looked for some work and found out that the wife of a wealthy merchant had been ill for 7 years. Jivak cured her. The merchant gave him lots of money. Thus, Jivak come back to Rajgriha. In Rajgriha, Jivak became the private physician of the king Bimbisara. Bimbisara was so impressed with his skills that he used to send him to look after the Buddha. Thus, Jivaka came in contact with Buddha. He gave lots of gifts to the Buddhist monks. Just compare the setting of the story with the happenings in the early Vedic society. No cattle raids, no sacrifices, and no priest. The story points to the existence of a flourishing urban settlements, and the important characters of the story are an abundant child who chooses to become a physician, a merchant Sestin, a king Bimbisara, and a Buddha, exponent of a new doctrine. And look at the geographical range. The early Vedic Aryans seem to have been ranging the plains of Punjab in the search of pastures. Jivaka travels all the way from Bihar to the northwestern border of Punjab. This would mean that he covered a distance of more than 2000 kilometers to be able to learn the practice of medicine. These new kinds of settlements, new kinds of occupations, and new networks of roads are symptomatic of a changed historical situation. Jivak moved in a world of new kinds of settlement, that is the city. The city flourished in a universe of prosperous village. Village was the basic unit of the socio-political organization of Mahajanpads, and so we take a round of the village in the 6th century BC. Villages. In the Mahajanpads, the basic unit of settlement was the Gan, which in Prakrit and Pali languages is the equivalent of Sanskrit Gram, meaning a village. Remember the Gram of the early Vedic times. It used to be a mobile unit of people, and when two gramas came together, it led to Sangram, literally coming together of the villages, that is battle. This was because they were mobile units, and when two hostile gramas met, it led to attempts at snatching away each other's cattle. The villages of the 6th century BC were settlements where people generally pursued agricultural activities. This signifies a shift from a pastoral to agricultural activities. There were various kinds of small and large villages inhabited by a single household or many families. The household seemed to have been part of an extended kin group, meaning that everyone was related to everyone else in the village. However, with the emergence of families who had large land holdings and who employed the labor of dasas, karmakaras, and purisas, villages inhabited by non-kinship groups also came into existence. There are references to land ownership and tenancy rights of varied kinds. Kasaka and Kshetrika denoted the common peasants who were generally of the Sudra Jati. The leaders of the villages are called Gamini. The Gamini are also referred to as soldiers, elephant and horse trainers, and stage managers. The trend towards increasing craft specialization is evident from the reference to villages of cattle keepers, iron smiths, woodworkers, etc. These references to villages specializing in activities other than agricultural operations are indicative of increasing trade and prospering economy. This is because the villagers who were not producing their own food must have got their food from other villages. This suggests that regular exchange of goods had become an integral part of the economic life of the people. Also, their specialization in one craft is indicative of the fact that there was a large scale demand for the goods produced by them. Towns and cities. Towns and cities dominated by the kings and merchants, but at the same time containing a heterogeneous population, were the new kinds of settlements which came into existence during this period. They are variously referred to as Pura, Nigma, and Nagara. The differences among these settlements are not clear. They probably refer to the size as well as varying features of the settlements. These towns and cities are substantially larger than the villages. Contemporary literature refers to big cities like Ayodhya and Varanasi covering anywhere between 30 to 50 square kilometers of area. These accounts are exaggerated as the excavations conducted in these cities show modest settlements in this period. In no period did the size exceed 5 square kilometers in circuit. However, this historic phase is associated with settlements using a deluxe pottery called the Northern Black Polished Ware (NBPW). The settlements witnessed an increase in trade and population. Massive fortifications have been found around the cities of Kausambi, Ujjaini, Rajghat, that is Varanasi, and Rajgir. What is clear from the references in literature is the fact that the cities had emerged as the focus of power and control over the Mahajanpad. The kings ruled from their cities. The newly emerging merchant class controlled trade from these centers, especially after the introduction of coinage. The 16 Mahajanpads. In the previous section, we discussed the literary and archaeological evidences for the presence of the basic units of settlements in the 6th century BC. We now shall discuss references to the 16 Mahajanpads in the Asian literature. The Buddhist sources refer to the presence of 16 Mahajanpads in the period when the Buddha lived. The Mahajanpads and their major settlements was found mentioned repeatedly when references to the Buddha are made in the Buddhist texts. The exact dates of the Buddha's life are still disputed by historians. It is, however, generally believed that the Buddha's life spanned parts of both 6th and 5th century BC, and Buddhist texts referring to his life are therefore taken to reflect the society of this period. The list of Mahajanpads varies from text to text. However, we can get a fair idea of the political and economic conditions of various regions of India by studying these lists. These Mahajanpads represented a conglomerate of thousands of villages and a few cities. These Mahajanpads extended from the northwestern Pakistan to East Bihar and from the sub-mountain regions of the Himalayas to the river Godavari in the south. The Buddhist text Anguttara Nikaya, which is part of the Sutta Pitaka, gives the following list of 16 Mahajanpads in the time of Buddha. These are Kashi, Kosal, Anga, Magad, Vajji, Malla, Chedi, Vats, Kuru, Panchal, Matsya yani Matsya, Surasen, Asaka, Avanti, Gandhar, Kamboj. Another Buddhist work, the Mahavatsu, gives a similar list of 16 Mahajanpads. However, it omits Gandhar and Kamboj, which were located in the northwest. These are substituted by Sibi and Dasarna in Punjab and central India respectively. Similarly, the Jain work Bhagavati Sutra gives a widely different list of 16 Mahajanpads, which include Vanga and Malaya. The number 16 seems to have been conventional, and the lists varied because regions important to the Buddhist and the Jainas came to be included in their list. The list indicate a gradual shift of focus to the middle Gangetic Valley because most of the Mahajanpads were located in this area. Let us survey the history and geography of these Mahajanpads. Kashi. Of the 16 Mahajanpads, Kashi seems to have been the most powerful in the beginning. Located in and around the present-day Varanasi district, its capital Varanasi is referred to as the foremost city of India, situated on the confluence of the Ganges and Gomati rivers, and in the midst of fertile agricultural tracts. Kashi was famous for its cotton textiles and market for horses. Excavations at the sites of the Rajghat which has been identified with ancient Banaras, have not yielded any impressive evidence for urbanization in the 6th century BC. It seemed to have emerged as a major town around 450 BC. However, we know that the orange-brown robes of the Buddhist monks were called Kashaya in Sanskrit, which was made in Kashi. This indicates that Kashi had emerged as a cloth manufacturing center and market by the time of Buddha. तो कंबोज ऊपर देखो गांधार, मत्स्य कुरु पांचाल, विराटनगर, सुरासेन चेडी, वत्स, काशी मगध, वज्जीमल अंग, अवंती. Several kings of Kashi are mentioned as having conquered Kosal and many other kingdoms. Interestingly enough, the earliest evidence version of the Ram story, the Dashrath Jataka, mentions Dashrath, Ram, etc., as kings of Kashi and not of Ayodhya. The father of Parsav, the 23rd teacher, Tirthankar of the Jain, is said to have been the king of Banaras. The Buddha also delivered his first sermon in Sarnath, near Banaras. All important religious traditions of ancient India associated themselves with Kashi. However, by the time of the Buddha, the Kashi Mahajanpad had been annexed by Kosala and was a cause of war between Magध and Kosal. Kosala. The Mahajanpad of Kosal was bounded on the west of the river Gomati. To its east flowed the river Sadanira, which separated it from Videha Janpad. Towards the north, it skirted the Nepal hills, while the river Syandika defined its southern boundary. Literary references indicate how Kosal emerged out of an assimilation of many smaller principalities and lineages. For example, we know that the Sakyas of Kapilvastu were under the control of Kosal. The Buddha calls himself a Kosalan in the Majjhima Nikaya, but at the same time, the Kosala king Vidudhaba is said to have destroyed the Sakyas. It would only indicate that the Sakya lineage was under the nominal control of Kosalas. The newly emergent monarchy established a centralized control and thus destroyed the autonomy of the Sakyas. Names of kings like Hiranyabha, Mahakasala Prasenjit, and Shuddhodana are mentioned as rulers of Kosal in the 6th century BC. These rulers are said to have ruled from Ayodhya, Saket, Kapilvastu, or Sravasti. Probably, in the early years of the 6th century BC, the area of Kosala was under the control of many smaller chieftains ruling from small towns. Towards the end of the 6th century BC, kings like Prasenjit and Vidudhaba managed to bring all other chieftains under their control. They ruled from Sravasti. Thus, Kosala became a prosperous kingdom having 3 big cities under its control, that is Ayodhya, Saket, and Sravasti. Kosala also annexed the kingdom of Kashi in its territory. The kings of Koshal favored both Brahmanism and Buddhism. King Prasenjit was a contemporary and friend of the Buddha. In the succeeding phases, Kosal proved to be one of the most formidable adversaries of the emergent Magadhan Empire. Anga comprised the districts of the Bhagalpur and Munger in Bihar. It may have extended northwards to the river Kosi and included some parts of the district of Purnia. It was located to the east of Magध and west of Rajmahal hills. Champa was the capital of Anga. It was located on the confluence of the rivers Champa and the Ganga. Champa has been considered one of the 6 great cities in the 6th century BC. It was noted for its trade and commerce, and traders sailed further east through the Ganga from here. In the middle of the 6th century BC, Anga was annexed by Magಧ. Excavations at Champa near Bhagalpur have yielded northern black polished ware in large numbers. Magಧ consisted of the areas of around Patna and Gaya in South Bihar. Magಧ was protected by the rivers Son and Ganga in its north and west. Towards the south, it reached up to the Chota Nagpur plateau. In the east of the river Champa separated it from Anga. Its capital was called Girivraj or Rajgriha. Rajgriha was an impregnable city protected by 5 hills. The walls of Rajgriha represented the earliest evidence of fortification in the historical India. The capital was shifted to Patliputra somewhere in the 5th century BC. They bear testimony to the powers of the early Magadhan monarchs. In the Brahminical texts, The Magdans were considered people of mixed origin and inferior type. This was probably because the people of this area did not follow the Varna system and the Brahminical rituals in the early historical times. The Buddhist tradition, on the other hand, attaches great importance to this area. The Buddha achieved enlightenment in this area. Rajagriha was one of his favorite haunts. Rajagriha was one of his favorite haunts. The Magadhan monarchs Bimbisar and Ajatasattu were his friends and disciples. With its fertile agriculture tracts suited to wet rice cultivation, control over the iron ores of South Bihar, and relatively open social system, Magadhan became the most important kingdom in the subsequent history. Its control over the trade routes of the Ganges, Gandak, and Son rivers could provide its substantial revenues. The Magadhan king Bimbisar is said to have called an assembly of the Gamanis of 80,000 villages. The number might be fictitious, but it indicates that Bimbisar's administration was based on the village as a unit of organization. The Gamani were not his kinsmen, but representatives and chiefs of villages. Thus, his power was based not on the goodwill of his kinsmen. Ajatasattu usurped the throne and starved Bimbisar to death. Magadha, as a kingdom, kept prospering with the extension of its control of the Vajji of Vaishali. This was to culminate in the Mauryan Empire in the 4th century BC. Vajji. Vajji centered around the Vaishali district of Bihar. The Vajjis, literal meaning pastoral nomads, were located north of Ganga. This Mahajanpad extended up to the hills of Nepal in the north. It was separated from Kosal by the river Gandak. Unlike the Mahajanpads previously discussed, the Vajjis had a different kind of political organization. The contemporary texts refer to them as Ganasangha, a term which has been variously translated as a republic or an oligarchy. The Ganasangha of this period represented a rule not by an all-powerful king, but a joint rule by a group of Kshatriya chiefs. This ruling class, members of which were called Rajas, were now differentiated from different non-Kshatriya groups. The Vajjis represented a confederacy of 8 clans, of whom the Videhas, Licchavis, and the Janatrikas were the most well known. The Videhas had their capital at Mithila. It has been identified with Janakpur in Nepal, although the Ramayana associates it with the king Janak. The Buddhist sources consider it a chiefship. Licchavis, the most well known of the ancient Indian Ganasanghas, had their headquarters at Vaishali. Vaishali is said to have been a large and prosperous city. The Janatrikas were also clan settled somewhere in the suburbs of Vaishali. This was the clan which produced Mahavir, the Jain teacher. The other members of confederacy were the clans of Ugras, Bhogas, Kauravas, and Akesavas. Vaishali seems to have been the metropolis of the entire confederacy. They conducted their affairs in an assembly. Accordingly to a Jataka story, the Vajjis were ruled by many clan chiefs. This Mahajanpad was a major power in the 6th century BC. However, they do not seem to have possessed a standing army or a system of revenue collection from agriculture. The Magadhan king Ajatasattu is supposed to have destroyed this confederacy. He sowed discord among the chiefs with the help of his minister Vasakara and then attacked the Licchavis. Mallas. The Mallas were another Kshatriya lineage referred to as Ganasanghas in ancient texts. They seem to have had several branches, of which 2 had their headquarters in the towns of Pav and Kushinagar. Kushinagar has been identified with the site of Kasia in the Gorakhpur district of UP. There is no unanimity among the scholars among the location of Pav. The Malla territories have said to have been located to the east and southeast of the territory of the Sakyas. They are supposed to have been ruled by 500 chiefs. The Buddha died in the vicinity of Kushinagar and his last rites were performed by the Mallas. Chedi. The Chedi territory roughly corresponds to the eastern parts of the modern Bundelkhand. It might have stretched up to the Malwa plateau. Sisupal, the famous enemy of Krishna, was a Chedi ruler. According to the Mahabharata, the Chedis seem to have been in close touch with the chiefs of Matsya beyond the Chambal, the Kasis of Banaras, and the Karusas in the valleys of the river Sun. Its capital with Suktimati, probably located in the Banda district of MP, Other important towns in this territory were Sahajati and Tripuri. Vats. Vats, with its capital at Kausambi, was one of the most powerful principalities of the 6th century BC. Kausambi has been identified with modern Kosam or the river Yamuna near Allahabad. This means that the Vatsa were settled around modern Allahabad. The Puranas say that the descendant of the Pandavas, Nichaksu, shifted his capital to Kausambi after Hastinapur had been washed away by floods. The dramatist Bhasha has immortalized one of the kings of the Vatsas named Uddayan in his plays. These plays are based on the story of the romantic affair between Uddayan and Vasavdatta, the princess of Avanti. They also indicate the conflicts among the powerful kingdoms of Magध, Vats and Avanti. Vats, however, seems to have lost the ensuing struggle as the subsequent texts do not give them much importance. Kuru. The kings of the Kuru were supposed to belong to the family of Yudhishthir. They were centered around the Delhi Meerut region. The Arth Shastra and other texts refer to them as Rajsabdo Pajivina, that is carrying the titles of kings. This indicates some kind of diffuse structure of chiefship. They did not have absolute monarchy, is also proved by references to many political centers in this area. Hastinapur, Indraprasth, Isukara are each mentioned as the capital of the Kurus having their own chiefs. We all know about the Kurus through the epic Mahabharata. It relates to the story of the war of succession between the Pandavas and Kauravas. The epic has enthralled generations of Indians with its superb interweaving of themes related to love, war, conspiracy, hatred, and the larger philosophical issues relating to human existence. Historians treat it more as epic literature than an actual depiction of events. Large-scale wars started only with the emergence of the Mahajanpads, earlier phase being characterized by cattle raids. The Mahabharata also mentions Greeks who came into contact with India only around the 5th century BC. Thus, a war involving Greeks could take place only in the first millennium BC, probably. The Mahabharata story relates to an internecine war between two Kshatriya lineages, which became a part of the singing tradition of the bards. With the emergence of the early historic period, the social, economic, and political interaction increased among the Mahajanpads. The singing bards and Brahmans brought in every region of India in the story of Mahabharata. This pleased the monarchs who could boast of an ancestor who fought in the Mahabharata war. Thus, the epic became a mechanism for the spread of the Brahminical religious system. This is clear from the fact that in the prologue of the Mahabharata, it is said that an earlier version as having 24,000 stanzas was still current. The present epic has 1 lakh stanzas. Panchal. The Panchal Mahajanpad was located in the Rohilkhand and parts of central Doab, roughly Bareilly, Pilibhit, Badaun, Bulandshahr, Aligarh, etc. The ancient texts refer to the presence of two lineages of the Panchalas, that is, the northern Panchalas and the southern Panchalas, with the river Bhagirathi forming the dividing line. The northern Panchalas had their capital at Ahichatra, located in the Bareilly district of UP. The southern Panchalas had Kampilya as their capital. They seem to have been closely linked to the Kurus. Although 1 or 2 Panchala chiefs are mentioned, we have very little information about them. They too are called a Sangha. By the 6th century BC, they seem to have become an obscure power. Matsya. The Matsyas were located in the Jaipur, Bharatpur, Alwar region of Rajasthan. Their capital was at Viratnagar, famed as the hiding place of the Pandavas. This region was more suitable for cattle rearing. That is why in the Mahabharata story, when the Kauravas attacked Virat, they took away cattle as booty. Obviously, Matsya could not compete with the powers that emerged on the basis of settled agriculture. It was absorbed in the Magadhan Empire. Some of the most famous edicts of the King Ashok have been found in Bharat Jaipur district, the ancient Virat. Surasen. The Surasenas had their capital at Mathura on the bank of the river Yamuna. In the Mahabharata and the Puranas, the ruling family of Mathura is referred to as Yadus. The Yadav clan was divided into many smaller clans like the Andhakas, Vishani, Mahabhojas, etc. They too had a sangha they too had a sangha form of government. The epic hero Krishna is associated with these ruling families. Mathura was located at the junction of two famous ancient Indian trade routes, that is the Uttar Path and the Dakshina Path. This was because Mathura represented the transitional zone between the Gangetic plains, having settled agriculture, and the sparsely populated pasture lands jutting into the Malabar plateau. That is why Mathura emerged as an important city. However, because of the splintered political structure and varied landscape, the chiefs of this area could not carve out a powerful kingdom. Asakas. The Asakas were inhabiting the banks of the river Godavari near modern Pathan in Maharashtra. Pathan has been identified with ancient Pratisthan, the capital of the Asakas. The Kaksina Patha, or the southern route, is supposed to have connected Pratisthan with the cities of the north. There are vague references to the kings of the Asakas, but our information regarding this region at this stage is very limited. Avanti. Avanti was one of the most powerful Mahajanpads in the 6th century BC. The core area of this kingdom would roughly correspond to the Ujjain district of Madhya Pradesh, extending up to the river Narmada. It had another important city, Mahishmiti, which is sometimes mentioned as its capital. Several other small and big towns are mentioned as dotting the Avanti region. The Puranas attribute the foundation of Avanti to one of the clans of the Yadus called the Haihaya. Located in a very fertile agriculture tract and controlling the trade coming from south, this clan of the Yadus were developed into a centralized monarchy. In the 6th century BC, a powerful king named Pradyuta was ruling over Avanti. He seems to have conquered Vatsa, and even Ajasatru was afraid of him. Gandhar. Gandhar was located between Kabul and Rawalpindi in northwestern province. It might have included some parts of Kashmir. Although it was an important area in the early Vedic period, it lost its importance in the Brahminical and Buddhist traditions of the later phases. The capital Takshila was an important city where people from all the Janpads went for learning and trading. In the 6th century BC, Gandhara was ruled by a king named Pukkusati. He was friendly with Bimbisara. In the later half of the 6th century BC, Gandhara was conquered by the Persians. Excavations in the modern towns of Takshila show that this site was occupied by 1000 BC, and some kind of township emerged subsequently. By the 6th century BC, a city having similarities with the Gangati Valley cities had emerged. 16th Mahajanpada, Kamboj. Kamboj was located elsewhere close to Gandhar, probably around the present-day Punch area. Already by the 7th century BC, the Kambojas were regarded as uncultured by the Brahminical texts. The Arth Shastra calls them Varta Satrapajivin Sangha, meaning a confederation of agriculturists, herdsmen, traders, and warriors. Now let us sum up. We have reviewed the political conditions prevailing in India of the 6th century BC. The Mahajanpads, which emerged as regions where new kinds of socio-political developments were taking place, were located in distinct geographical zones. What seems to be very significant is the fact that 7 of them, that is Ang, Magd, Vajji, Malla, Kasi, Kosla and Vatsa, were located in the middle Gangetic Valley. This is a rice growing area, whereas the upper Gangetic Valley is a wheat growing area. It has been observed that in the traditional agricultural system of India, rice output exceeded the wheat output. The rice producing areas had a greater density of population too. Further, Mahajanpads like Magda had easy access to crucial resources like metal ores. These factors might be related to the emergence of the middle Gangetic Valley as the focus of politico-economic power. The fact that so many Mahajanpads were contiguous to each other in this area meant that an ambitious leader could try and conquer prosperous and neighboring territories. Also, it would be easier to retain control over a neighboring territory. The rulers of the Mahajanpads of Punjab or Malwa would have to traverse empty geographical zones before they came across some prosperous territory. Thus, the flat terrain and the contiguity of settlements provided a better chance for a ruler in the middle Gangetic Valley to consolidate his power. No wonder Magda, one of the powers in this zone, emerged as the most powerful kingdom in the subsequent period. कीवर्ड्स हेटेरोडॉक्स सेक्ट क्या होते हैं? द रिलीजियस मूवमेंट्स विच इमर्ज ड्यूरिंग द 6th century BC, they provided a challenge to the Vedic religion. Pali language spoken in the areas of Magध and Koshal. Buddhist literature was written in the Pali language. Prakrit language spoken at the time of Ashok in Magध. The first written material in historical Indica is found in the Prakrit language. Urban settlements तो पता है, the place where a significant proportion of population is agricultural, is engaged in activities other than the food production or agriculture.